Hey everybody, and welcome back to the board meeting. Today we're doing a top 10 list, but it's not going to be a top 10 list like you're used to seeing on this channel. It's not going to be talking about specific board games, actually, because we're talking today about the top 10 things that will entice me to buy a game. So when I'm window shopping, whether I'm at the store or I'm surfing the internet on some board game website, what are the top 10 things that will make me stop and maybe potentially buy that game? So let's go to number 10. I'm going to try to make this pretty fast today. Number 10 is just very simple, the board game cover, because this is your entry point into that game. This is the thing that will make you stop and actually check out the game beyond the cover. If you have a bad board game cover, it doesn't just make me stop and like, oh, what is this? You have failed at your job at whoever is making the front cover. That's the job of the front cover, the board game cover, to make you stop and look past and see what the contents of that box are. I won't buy a game simply because of the board game cover, but I will definitely check out the contents of the box. A lot of these games that are on the shelf right here that are facing out, these are covers that I really enjoy. And that's probably one of the reasons why I first initially looked at these games, actually. So yes, number 10 is board game cover. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 would be the production company. If it is a production company that I know and that has built up a certain reputation with myself, I'm more likely to purchase that game. Because for certain companies, like let's say Days of Wonder, I know the quality of the game is going to be really good, and for the most part they have a reputation with me for making games that I have really enjoyed in the past. There's the train. There's a lot of traffic in my neighborhood here recently. Don't know if you can hear all of that, but yes, production companies, if you have built a bit of a trust with me, and I know that, hey, okay, Renegade's coming out with a new game. I've liked a bunch of their games that they've come out with. I know they make good quality games. They make playable games. It's a good indication. I'm probably going to check out that game. Let's go to number 8. Number 8 is simply reviewers. Reviewers that my interest line up with. For example, I've got two people when I'm talking about this in mind specifically. Z Garcia and Mike Delisio, both from the Dice Tower. They have a lot of games similar to... They like a lot of games to me. We have similar tastes in games for the most part. Not all of the time, of course. Nobody's going to be. But if Mike Delisio says, hey, this is a really good game, I've really enjoyed my plays of this, I am that much more likely into going to buy that game. And Mike and Z are both solo gamers as well, and so a lot of times they'll give the solo aspect of that game as well as the multiplayer. But yeah, number 8 is simply the reviewers. If a reviewer that I know aligns with me says it's a good game, I'm a lot more likely to buy that game. Going to number 7. Number 7 is playtime. And this is not so much I'm going to buy a game because of playtime. This is I'm not going to buy a game because of the playtime. Say a game says on the cover that it's a 4 to 6 hour game. That's most likely going to get a pass from me. Just because longer games in my group is harder to get to the table, and I assume most people's groups. So if that's 4 to 6 hour game, I'm like, when am I going to play it? And if I do play it, how many times am I actually going to play it? Am I going to buy this big giant game to play it once a year, maybe? My sweet spot for games is usually about 90 minutes. 90 minutes or less. I like filler games as well. You know, if your game says 10 to 15 minutes, I'm not going to discredit it. Good chance I'm going to pick it up. But yeah, if it's a long game, I'm less likely to buy it. Going to number 6. Number 6 is variable player powers. If your game has some kind of variable player powers, if each character in that game that you're playing as has some kind of unique special ability, I like that. I like that in games. If you have a different ability than this person, and this person has a different ability than that person, because I like to differentiate myself when playing. And it's going to make the game have that much more replay value for myself. Because if I'm playing as this, like as Marco Polo, if I'm playing as this character and their power is this, and I see across the table or another person has this other special ability, I'm like, that looks like a really fun ability. I want to play this game again, and I want to play as that person this time. And then the next time I want to switch to another person. It just increases that replay value for myself when you get variable player powers. Going to number 5. Number 5 is designer. If it's a designer that I really like, a designer that I really like, I like that. Say if Bruno Catala designs a game and that his name's on that front cover. You know how I talked about board game covers earlier. If your board game cover sucks, if it's really bland, but that name Bruno Catala pops up on that cover, I'm like, oh, let me check this out now, because I tend to like Bruno Catala games. He's one of my favorite designers, and I know his designs usually align with something that I enjoy playing. So a good designer can overcome a bad board game cover a lot of times. Going to number 4. Number 4 is price point. I am a bargain shopper. If I'm not going to buy a game, I'm very seldom am I going to buy a game at full price. Games are expensive, and if you buy a ton of games, that's a very expensive hobby. And I myself, who buys a lot of games, if I follow so many websites and different things that are show you sales that are going on currently. Like a miniature market will send me an email about a sale going on, or I follow a bunch of Facebook groups that look around the internet for sales. So if the price point is right, I'm more enticed to buy that. I very, very seldom buy a game at full price. Also, if your game costs $250, I'm not going to buy it, because it's just not worth it for myself to buy games that are that expensive. Unless that game, say, comes way, way, way down. I very seldom buy games that are high priced like that. Going to number 3. Number 3 is theme. What is your theme of that game? Is it something that I'm interested in? Say if it's like a sports thing. I like sports, so if you make a sports game, I'll probably look at it a little bit more. Or say you design a game that just the theme is unique. It's a theme that we don't see very often in board games, and that's one problem with board game themes, is everybody's copying each other. It's like, oh, what's the new hottest thing to do? Like Cthulhu. Everybody was making Cthulhu games. Everybody was making zombie games. If you have a theme on that game that's unique, that I haven't really seen in any board games, I like that. For example, Wingspan. When Wingspan came out, it's got a theme of birds. Am I a bird fan? Nope. But because I hadn't really seen any bird games out, I was like, yeah, I'm going to check that out. And it turns out I enjoyed Wingspan. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, I'm vain. So number 2 is the just artwork and the general look of that game. If, like I said, talking about the board game covers, good board game cover goes a long ways. But then once you have to have more than a good board game cover. You have to have good artwork, and you have to have a good general look of that game. Because to me, if a game looks nice, if it looks good, I'm going to have a funner time playing it, actually. Which sounds kind of strange, but it's true. Games that just look good, feel good, just are funner to play. For example, there are games that look really boring, but I still like them. A big example of this is Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy is an awesome game, but that board looks horrible. So I don't break it out very often, even though it's a game I really like. I don't play it very often, and I pretty much accredit that to the general look of the game. It looks so bland. So if your game is just covered in gray, I don't want that. I want a game that pops, that distinguishes itself somehow, that makes me go, wow, that looks awesome. You need to have some kind of table presence in my mind. So let's go to number one. The number one thing that a company can do to entice me to buy that game. And that is simply that little player count that shows the number one. If you include a solo mode in your multiplayer game, I am so much more likely to buy that game. I would say it probably bumps up the chances of me buying a game by 50% because I don't have to depend on anyone. Say it's a really complex game and I'm like, I don't know if I can bring this to game night. I don't know if I want to bring it there and teach everybody, or if the people are going to like this game even. But if it's got that solo mode, I know that at least I can play it by myself at the house. So that game is going to get played even if I can't bring it to game night. So you don't have to depend on other people. So yeah, it's just, number one is including that solo mode. I'm going to probably buy that game if I was already interested in it in the first place. And that solo mode, that pushes me over the edge and I'm like, yep, click and buy on that one for sure. That is my entire list though. So let me know in the comments below, what's your guys' number one thing that will entice you to buy games? What do you look for in games that will just push you over the edge and make you purchase that game? Either way, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to see more weekly content for me, Shane, at the board meeting in the future. Hope you all have an amazing day. Take care, everyone.